أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين.
ربنا علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. وصلي اللهم وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ونبينا Muhammad. Today we are discussing the grave circumstances which Allah told us to seek refuge in Him from, in His attributes as رب الفلق. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. This is one of the surahs which we learn when we are children, and we say it hopefully several times a day, especially these days. Now this surah, we think that we know what it means. It's one of those easy surahs like the Fatiha. Remember when we did the Fatiha, everybody thought that, you know what, we know the Fatiha, we're just going to know a little bit more about it. And then when we did it together, we discovered that we don't even know what the Suratul Mustaqim is. It's the most important part of the Fatiha. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. We realized, oh my God, we don't know what the Suratul Mustaqim is. And this is what's going to happen today. Today, you are going to be surprised. Let's start with قل أعوذ برب الفلق. So what we're discussing today are the grave circumstances which God told us to seek refuge in Him from, in His attribute as what? To seek refuge in Him as what? Not as Rabb al-Nas, right? As Rabb al-Falaq, the Lord sustainer of beginnings that break forth into new realities. Wow. Okay, now let's look at that again. What's the meaning of Falaq? What's the meaning of Rabb al-Falaq? That He's the Lord sustainer of what? Of Falaq. What is Falaq? It's a beginning that breaks forth into new reality. Oh my God. Yes, we should seek refuge in Him from that. Beginnings that break forth are usually scary, and if they break forth into a new reality, they're even more scary and more dangerous. Scholars were in disagreement on the meaning of Falaq. They did not agree. There were many options to choose from. What does falaq mean? But the most famous were those who said that it meant incarceration in hell. Falaq is incarceration in hell. Rabb al-Falaq. Others said, no, falaq is daybreak. And what is intended here is nighttime, that you are seeking refuge in God from darkness, from the night. Some even said it was the moon. So they were not اختلف أهل التأويل في معنى الفلق. They were not unanimous on the meaning of falaq. So what do? This is what we do. Research. Our research starts with the Arabic Quran, context and language. And what? The lexicon, 1004 CE. That's when the man died who had it, the lexicographer who had compiled it. That's the lexicon we use mostly. And we gain knowledge by, of course, cross-referencing within the Quran and authentic tradition of our Prophet, peace upon him, as well as the knowledge left to us by our brethren who preceded us in faith. So, alhamdulillah, we have lots of information to go through and use. But let me tell you something. The information we have has been selected. What I mean to say is that there is a lot of information which is not printed. There are lots of books that have not been published in paper and put online. So when we say that do we have the full libraries of our ancestors? No, we don't. We have what people have selected to publish or selected to tell us about, and there's a lot that we don't have. And of course, there was a lot that was lost as well. So we're doing our best, inshallah, within what we do have. So, falaq, the root verb falaqa appears in the Quran 4 times in those 4 surahs, or actually 3 surahs. Surah Al-An'am, Surah Al-Shu'ara, and Surah Al-Falaq. In Surah Al-An'am, we have 2 ayahs. That makes it 4. So it says, verily, God is the cleaver or the splitter asunder, the one who splits asunder what? The grains and the fruit stones. What you're seeing here is a fruit stone. It's a peach from which, you know how hard the peach stone is? How hard is it? Yet, what happens? Tuflaq. It is split, and out of it comes a new reality. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the faliq al-habbi wal-nawa. He is the cleaver or splitter of the grains and the fruit stone, delivering the alive from the dead and the dead from the alive. He is also faliq al-isbah. He is the cleaver of daybreak. So he is the faliq. Here it has faliq. So faliq of what? Of grains and fruit stones, and faliq of isbah, which is the daybreak. And what happened to Musa? Musa ضرب بعصاه الحجر. ضرب بعصاه الحجر. Yes, and the bahr. So he used his asa, his stick, his rod, his staff to hit two things. He hit the rocks once, and then springs gushed forth, and he hit what? The ocean, the sea, and it became as a magnificent wall. So the falaq is definitely about what? It's not about Jahannam. It's not about whatever, it is about something being split asunder, split into two parts or more, something just splitting. We don't care what the parts are. We care what's going to happen. When it splits, something else comes forth, a new reality. So here it is faliqul isbah, one who cleaves apart the daybreak from darkness. And here it is in falaqa, which is splitting open the sea for Moses. And here is what the exegetes, what they say, how they explain falaq. They tell us that falaq is the splitting of soil when the seedlings push through, the parting of mountains when the springs gush forth, and the clouds when it rains, and the opening of wombs when newborns emerge from the wombs. It is the falaq. It is the splitting open of something for a new reality. And that new reality could be a beautiful one, and it could also be a calamitous one. It depends on what that reality is. Okay? So the examples we have here are beautiful ones, but it's not necessarily always beautiful, because the reality might begin beautiful and end up not so beautiful, or might begin very ugly and end up beautiful. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's prerogative how it goes. But the most difficult thing is the falaq, which is the breaking open of something which you were used to the way it was, and suddenly it broke open into a new reality. So falaq is about splitting and cleaving beginning. So now let's talk about it again. Say, I seek refuge in the Lord sustainer of all beginnings that break open. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ. I seek refuge in the Lord sustainer. He is Rabb al-Falaq, meaning he's the Lord sustainer of all beginnings that break open. And it's between brackets that I say, and from all that comes forth from that beginning, because that beginning is bringing you a new reality. So when you say قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, you are seeking refuge from the cleaving open and the new reality, and whatever that new reality is going to bring. So قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ مِنْ شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ. We seek refuge in the Lord sustainer of all beginnings that break forth, creating new realities, and from the harm emanating from any of his creatures. مِنْ شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ. So we are in this life with his creatures, with all Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's creatures. Now, to everything there is a what? There is an opposite. That's the way things are created. Everything is created in pairs and in opposites. So whatever goodness we have, there exists an opposite to that. So when we're saying قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ مِنْ شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ, we are seeking refuge in him from the negative opposites, from the negatives of the positives. So we're seeking refuge in him from the harm emanating from any of his creatures. A creature may not be harmful, but it may cause harm sometimes. So what we're doing is just seeking refuge from any harm emanating from any of his creatures. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ مِنْ شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ وَمِنْ شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبَ. Again, أهل التأويل اختلفوا. Again, the exegetes, the mufassirin, they differed as to the meaning here. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ مِنْ شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ. Okay, وَمِنْ شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبَ. They said, oh, this is nighttime. But it cannot be nighttime, because nighttime is mentioned in the Quran as غَسَقُ اللَّيْلِ, the darkness of a layl. So how can this word غَاسِق, which means literally darkener, be nighttime? Because we do have the word غَسَقُ اللَّيْل in the Quran. أقم الصلاة لدلوك الشمس إلى غسق الليل وقرآن الفجر إن قرآن الفجر كان مشهودا. So we do have the word غسق, and we have the word غساق in the Quran as well. The word غساق is mentioned twice, And it's mentioned as a dark, ugly fluid which people will be tasting in hell. So it's something which is harmful, let's say. خلاص يعني definitely it is something which is what? Bad. Something which we don't want. ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب. So the غاسق in itself is detrimental. It's something bad. But إذا وقب, that's when it is most detrimental. So we say قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب. So what is the غاسق? The غاسق, those of you who know Arabic, على وزن فاعل, meaning it is a noun and it's a subject that does something. It's a noun and it's in the fa'il wazn, meaning grammatically it does something. It's not idle. It will do something. So what does the ghasiq do? We have to take the meaning of ghasaq. Ghasaq means or ghasaqa means to darken. So ghasiq is the darkener. Now this is very interesting. Very interesting. So let's take another look. Some people said the ghasiq, when the exegete Muhammad bin Jarir al-Tabari was giving us the explanation, he's the oldest exegete, the oldest mufassir. Okay, he died in 310 Hijri, 923 Common Era. So he lived in the 9th century. So he tells us something now very interesting. He tells us that, let me read this one first. وَمِنْ شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبْ يَقُولُ وَمِنْ شَرِّ مُظْلِمٍ, meaning a darkener. Okay, إِذَا دَخَلْ, if it comes upon you or enters upon you, وَهَجَمَ عَلَيْنَا بِظَلَامِهِ, and attacks you with its darkness. Tabari had said something else. He said, كانت العرب تقول, that the Arabs used to say, and I love it when people point to what the Arabs used to say, because they are talking about Arabi, which is what the Quran is, and what the Bedu would be discussing, in their eloquent language. And what they said, كانت العرب تقول, that the Arabs, the Bedu used to say, the Ghasiq is the position of a planet when it descends near Earth, and the planet is the Thuraya planet. At that time, now listen to this, at that time, when the planet descends near the Earth, what would fall upon humanity? What would fall upon humanity is epidemic and plague. And when the planet distance, then the plagues would be lifted. And the Prophet, peace upon him, used to say, An-Najm al-Ghasiq. He used to call the Najm, that planet, al-Ghasiq. So imagine that in ancient Arabia, even before the Risala, even before the Prophet, peace upon him, a long time ago, they used to observe the planet, and they used to consider that a certain planet, when that planet came forth or came close to Earth, there would be epidemics and طواعين and plagues. كانت العرب تقول الغاسق سقوط الثريا وكانت الأسقام والطواعين تكثر عند وقوعها. So we're talking here about the epidemic and the pandemic. So when you say قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق, you're talking about all harm from anything Allah created. And then when you say وَمِنْ شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبْ, you are talking about a darkener. What's the meaning of إِذَا وَقَبْ? When it overwhelms. قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ مِنْ شَرِّ مَا خَلَقَ وَمِنْ شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبْ. Seeking refuge in the darkener when it overwhelms. And this is exactly what's happening today. And of course, there's a reason for that. May Allah forgive us. So we seek refuge in the Lord Sustainer of all beginnings that break forth, creating new realities. We seek refuge in Him from any harm we might encounter, emanating from any of His creatures. And we seek refuge in Him from the harm of a darkening entity, an entity that is darkening when it overwhelms, overpowers, and engulfs us. We seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I would really advise that we read this several times a day. Whenever we remember it, just let's say it. وَمِنْ شَرِّ النَّفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ. Okay, so when I looked this up, this is the picture that came up. The picture of witches and the picture of knots. And نفاثات في العقد. عقد means knot, and نفاثات means the hissers into the knot. And here we find that the exegetes, the mufassirin, they did not differ here. They all said that this is what it is. It is the نفاثات في العقد. It is the hissers into the knots, which are السواحر. نفاثات is a feminine noun, so it's witches. Only witches. What if it's a sorcerer? No, نفاثات is a feminine noun. So the constant hissers into the knots are considered to be witches. Okay, now what does the Quran tell us about sihr? The Quran tells us about sihr something very important. And the ayah which tells us about the biggest sihr, the most amazing sihr or magic, is this ayah in Surah Al-A'raf 7116. قَالَ أَلْقُوا, he said, throw you first, meaning Moses telling the sorcerers, throw first. And when they threw their what? Their staffs and their ropes. سحروا أعين الناس واسترهبوهم. So what happened when they threw? Two things happened. سحروا أعين الناس واسترهبوهم. Two things. What's the meaning of سحروا أعين الناس? Interesting. Look up the word سحرة in our oldest lexicon. It'll tell you السحر هو الخديعة والشبهة. الخديعة والشبهة. Deceit and semblance. Impressive, impressing somebody with something that is shubha, that is not really there. It looks like it's there, but it's not really there. خدع وشبهة. So if that is what magic is, خدع وشبهة, Allah says they came with great magic, meaning they actually did let people think that these ropes and staffs were snakes. Of course, until Moses threw his and they realized, oh my God, this is real. Subhanallah. So when the Mufassirin tell you it is about sihr and blowing into the knots, it's about what the witches hiss and blow, because nafith in Arabic is to hiss or to blow, like that, nafith. And nafathat is constantly hissing, not just hissing once or twice. Nafathat, fa'alat, very constant, like it's always. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here is telling us to seek refuge in Him from what? From the nafathat in the knots. Are they witches? Well, let's see. They could be. I'm not saying they're not, but let's see. Is that all? It is the common explanation of the time. Even in European literature, European, remnants of whether it is books or artwork or even ruins, you will find a lot about magic and witchcraft. And this is the witch's knot, the symbol there. And you can find it in many places, etched into people's doors at times, so that it would be a protection. And you will find powerful spells, books about knot magic, how to knot a knot and make something, some kind of magic. And you can hiss into it if you wish as well. Allahu A'lam how that's done, but we're not going to try because we're not into magic, inshallah. But is that just the meaning? It's the common explanation of the time. That's why none of the exegetes differed. None of the mufassirin said, no, it could be something else. But you know what? Let me tell you something. I'm very surprised. I'm very surprised that they did not notice that there is something else. And that something is something that the Quran says so clearly, but you have to have an unbiased mind to find it. Okay? It's there. And it's one of our recoveries at Iqra, inshallah. It will be one of our recoveries. May Allah give us the benefit of this recovery, because it's a beautiful recovery. Again, we do the research, the language, insight, the Quran itself. What does it say? The cross-referencing in the Quran. And we recover the forgotten name. It's a forgotten name. Remember what we said about Adam? علم آدم الأسماء كلها. Look, when you forget a name, what that name means, what happens to you? You lose the whole gist of the ayah. You lose the whole intention which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put into those words. The Quran has bayan. Inna alayna jam'ahu wa qur'ana. فَإِذَا قَرَأْنَاهُ فَاتَّبِعْ قُرْآنَهُ ثُمَّ إِنَّ عَلَيْنَا بَيَانَهُ. So the bayan is up to God. He promised us, it's upon me your bayan. How come we don't have bayan today? We don't have bayan because we have lost al-asma. Recover the asma. علم آدم الأسماء. That's the first thing Allah gave Adam, the asma. You recover the asma and you have the bayan. Unfortunately, we have lost the asma. That's why we've lost the bayan. So now today we're going to recover together one ism, a name. And once we recover that, you're going to be amazed. We're recovering the forgotten name, which is what? The uqad. النفاثات في العقد. Uqad is the plural of uqdah. Uqdah is a knot. Uqad are knot. Look at those knots that I put here on the screen. You'll find that a durable knot is of the same texture. Equal length, equal thickness, different colors, no problem. Texture has to be the same, otherwise it will not tie. Get a wire and tie it to a string, it will not tie. Get a wire with a wire and a string with a string, yes. How about a silk thread with a regular thread? It also won't tie, not durably. One of them, it will slip off. You have to tie equal textures to make a durable knot. So today we're going to recover the meaning of an-nafathat fil uqad. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to be seeking refuge in Him from an-nafathat fil uqad. And He does not say when they nafath. He does not say seek refuge in them when they do their nafath. No, because they're always nafathat. You see what I mean? People who do the nafath, they are always doing the nafath. It's habit. It's not that one day they do and one day they don't. So in which knots are they hissing? We look up the word uqdah in the Quran and we find it in two places. And it is called uqdatun nikah. And Moses in Surah Taha 20:27, he said, وَحْلُلْ عُقْدَةً مِّن لِسَانِي يَفْقَهُ قَوْلِي. And what? Untie or unbind the knot in my tongue so that they will understand my word. Look at this picture here. It says عقد النكاح Is this correct? Is the word aqd for nikah correct? Look at what it says here in Arabic. Uqdah. If you can read Urdu or Arabic, you will notice the ta, uqdatun nikah. And that's the only time it's mentioned in the Quran. Uqdatun nikah. It is a uqdah. It is not aqd. So scrap that. Not aqd. It's not a contract. Sorry. It's more than a contract. By forgetting the word uqdatun nikah and simply making it aqdun nikah, what is a bond, what is a knot of equal material to be tied securely has become a mere contract. It is a uqdah. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls it. And by losing the name uqdah, we lost so much as women, as a marriage, as a family. It's a uqdah. So sad. The uqdah is unlike the aqd. Marriage is a sacred mithaq ghalidh in which the man is liable to the woman. How do we know that? Because we have two mawathiq in the Quran. Mithaqan ghalidha. We have only two. What's a mithaq ghalidh? Mithaq ghalidh is a sacred covenant, not even covenant. You can call it a sacred covenant if you wish. Maybe that's the best word actually, sacred covenant. It's not an agreement. It's more than that. It's a sacred covenant. So the mithaq ghalidh in the Quran is mentioned twice. Listen to this. It's not a mere contract. That's aqd. Awfu bil-uqud. It comes in the Quran several times. The aqd of what? Buying and selling, doing this, doing that. You know, get a witness, do da. All of that is the aqd. But this is not aqd. What's between a man and a woman is a uqdah. And it's the uqdatun nikah. And it is called al-mithaq al-ghalidh. And we spoke about this once. And I do have something written about it. I think I sent it to you before. Al-mithaq al-ghalidh appears twice in the Quran only. One of them is when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Surah 33 ayah 7 إِذْ أَخَذْنَا مِنَ النَّبِيِّينَ مِيثَاقَهُم وَمِنْكَ وَمِن نُوحٍ وَإِبْرَاهِيمَ وَمُوسَى وَعِيسَى ibn Maryam. When we took from the prophets their mithaq, meaning their covenant, what the covenant they had with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and from you, O Muhammad, and from Nuh, and from Ibrahim, and from Musa, and from Isa ibn Maryam, and we took from them all a mithaqan ghalidha. That's the mithaq that Allah took from the prophets to do what? To deliver to their people the unity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a duty that they had to do, and their mithaq was taken from whom? From Allah. أخذنا منهم. Allah took from them. God took from them their mithaq. So the one who hands the mithaq to the other is the one liable to fulfill the mithaq. Please pay attention to this. Now let's look at the other ayah. There's only two ayahs in the Quran mentioning the mithaq al-ghalidh, okay, which is what? The weighty, the heavy, the sacred covenant. So the other one is in Surah An-Nisa 4 ayah 120, Surah 4 ayah 21. If you wish to exchange one wife for another, meaning you want to divorce one and marry another, and you have given her a qintar, meaning a large quantity of dowry or gift, فَلَا تَأْخُذُ مِنْهُ شَيْئًا. Do not take anything from it. How could you take it? وَقَدْ أَفْضَى بَعْضُكُمْ إِلَى بَعْضٍ. And you have been together as one. وَأَخَذْنَ مِنْكُمْ مِيثَاقًا. And they, the women, took from you, O men. You see here, أخذنا is feminine. Minkum is masculine. So they, the women, took you from you, O men, ميثاقًا غليظا. Who took the mithaq here? The woman. Took it from whom? From the man. In the other ayah, Surah 33, who took the mithaq? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. From whom? From the Nabiyyin. So the uqdah is unlike the aqd, and somebody needs to know that, because that has not been mentioned. When they talked about an-naffathati fil uqad, they talked about witches and mere knots, witchcraft. They did not talk about those who hiss into the uqdah of marriage so as to dissolve the marriages. The bond of marriage is called a uqdah. So those who are hissing, of course, hissing is like a snake. The sound which the snake does is to hiss. And it's interesting that even in Arabic we have a saying about somebody who speaks a lot of bad things. We say لسانها بشطلتين. You know, that her tongue is divided into two, like a what? Like a snake. Sometimes we say بأربع شطلات كمان. We can even make her more than a snake. So we have people who are hissing into the knot so as to untie the marriage knot, to untie the mithaq ghalidh. And these could be women, nisa naffathat. They could be nufus, because the plural of nafs is also feminine. So it could be the nufus that is making the nafat. Now you could have men here as well. It's not necessarily the women. Or the kalimat. The words are the kind of words that are naffathat. So Allahu a'lam what it is, but it is about hissing and untying the knot. I'm not saying that it's not about magic, by the way. It could be because of this ayah here, Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 102, which says about Malik Sulaiman. If you remember the story of Sulaiman and he had those who were teaching people magic, right? Harut and Marut, and they were teaching people magic. And they used to say that our magic is fitna. It's a trial by fire. Do not deny God. You can learn the magic, but do not deny God. فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مِنْهُمَا. So the people used to learn from them both. فَيَتَعَلَّمُونَ مِنْهُمَا مَا يُفَرِّقُونَ بِهِ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَزَوْجِهِ. So they were learning such great magic that they could even cause the untying of the knot, of the marriage knot. That they could even cause a man and his wife to separate by their magic. So I'm not saying it's not magic. I'm just saying it's about marriage mainly and magic. But it's about marriage. It's about untying the knot, untying the marriage bond. But people have not noticed the word uqda. They call the marriage aqd. It's not. The Quran says it's uqda. What happened to our Arabic? Just by losing the ta, one letter, we lost the marriage. Honestly, we are in very bad shape. وَمِن شَرِّ النَّفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ. Isn't this what I'm showing you now? نَفَّاثَاتِ فِي الْعُقَدِ. Aren't these words, these ads, these programs, what's coming out on TV, the Pride Parade, all of these things? Because in Arabic, naffathat is a feminine noun, and in Arabic, things are feminine nouns. Things are feminine nouns. So you could have the word muhadarat, which is what? Lectures. That's a feminine noun. You could have muhadarat naffathat fil uqad, meaning the lectures are hissing into the marriage bond. Pornography, not LGBTQ, but just pornography. Okay, that's also baramij or tasweer, or you can say aflam. It would be in Arabic a feminine plural. Naffathati fil uqad. So we seek refuge in the Lord sustainer of all beginnings that break open into a new reality from the harm of the incessant hissers into the knots and bonds which we hold sacred. Amongst them, and most importantly, is the marriage knot and the marriage bond. It does not say here if and when they come. It just says naffathat. This is what we want. We want our uqad to remain together, our marriage bond to be safe and secure. It is a mithaq ghalib. It is something that is sacred, and we must realize that. وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. So we have 4 verses in the Quran about hasad. Hasad from within ourselves, as Surah Al-Baqarah says, حَسَدًا مِنْ عِنْدِ أَنفُسِهِمْ. And then hasad, because Allah gave somebody something more than you. أَمْ يَحْسُدُونَ النَّاسَ عَلَى مَا آتَاهُمُ اللَّهُ مِنْ فَضْلِهِ. Or we have the hasad, which is not real, that people who find you judging them, or who are less than you, look at you who are better than them, and they say, oh, you have hasad on us. And what's happening is exactly the opposite. Is that they have hasad on you, but they don't want to admit. So they say that you have the hasad on them. This is what happened to the laggards stayed behind in Surah Al-Fatah. Surah 48, ayah 15. And then we have, of course, this ayah, وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. Okay, what is hasad? Hasad is to wish something that somebody has on yourself. Sometimes bad hasad is when you wish it, what? When you wish them to lose it. You wish it for yourself, but you wish them to lose it. That's the bad hasad. So we can have, hasad for goodness, that, I envy you because of something you have, which is more than me. Let's say your prayer, your dhikr, your knowledge, your Arabi, or whatever is better than me. But we don't call it hasad in Arabic. You see, we don't call it envy. We don't call it jealousy. We call it ghibta, aghbatuk. Yani, it's almost like I'm happy for you, but I wish I had the same. So now, the ayah says, وَمِن شَرِّ حَاسِدٍ إِذَا حَسَدٍ. Like it said, وَمِن شَرِّ غَاسِقٍ إِذَا وَقَبٍ. And here the hasid on his own is okay. وَلَكِنْ إِذَا حَسَدٍ, that's when the danger starts. And that's when you ask Allah to do what? To save you from, you seek refuge in Allah from the hasid. إِذَا حَسَدٍ. So the interesting thing is that Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, what did he say? He said, I have never seen a wrongdoer who is as similar to the wronged than the envier. What did he mean? He meant that the person who envies you is wrongdoing against himself so much that he's the one who is wronged. مظلوم يعني مسكين صار. يعني he wronged himself so much just by being envious. Because envy eats you up, right? So the hasid, this picture I think shows it very well. The hasid smiles at you with a mask on his face, whereas behind that mask they hate you, and behind their backs they have a knife. So that's the hasid إذا حسد. You see, إذا حسد, meaning that if and when that envier acts upon that envy. So when they act upon it, their behavior changes, and they want not just what you have, they want you to suffer. It's worse than just wanting what you have. They want you not to have it anymore. So we seek refuge in the Lord Sustainer of all beginnings that break open into a new reality, from any harm emanating from anything He created, from the harm of the darkener, if and when it overwhelms, from the harm of the incessant hissers into the knots and the bonds that we hold sacred, and from the harm of the envier, if and when he acts upon that envy. This is tawakkul. So when I'm saying that, and I'm saying this surah again and again during the day and the night before I go to bed, it is tawakkul. I'm relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I repeat it constantly. But let me tell you something, it's not enough without action. Why? Because there's two kinds of reliance. One is tawakkul, which is an active reliance, meaning I'm relying on Allah, but at the same time I am an active person doing what I should be doing. And there's something else called idle reliance or inactive reliance. And that one is a negative thing, that you are not going to do anything, but you are relying on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is called tawakkul. And what happens then is that Allah does not help you. Allah does not help you. God helps those who help themselves. There's two kinds of reliance, idle reliance and active reliance. Tawakkul is active reliance. Tawakkul is idle reliance. So what we do, this is not enough just to say قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ مِنْ شَرِّ and keep saying it all day. That is not enough. Why? Because before you call upon Him and seek refuge in Him because of what He created or to save you from what He created, respond to His command, which was His first command, which was اقرأ. اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق. اقرأ in the name of your Lord, Sustainer, who created. The Iqra command, those of you who've been with us for a while, you know that it's in the 10th century Arabic lexicon. It's about when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said Iqra, it does not mean read, it does not mean peruse, does not mean just think, it does not mean follow. It means all of these and more. It means to gather, to carry, to deliberate, to witness in real time, meaning now, in the now, to serve and share. That's the meaning of Iqra. And we should Iqra bismi rabbina alladhi khalaq, and then we should seek refuge bi Rabbil Falaq min sharri ma khalaq. Everything comes hand in hand with Iqra. May we be in constant remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and conscious plea for refuge in Rabbil Falaq, and may we and our loved ones be saved from the trials and tribulations of our times and from the ghasiq which has waqab upon us today. May Allah protect us from the ghasiq which has waqab upon us today.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله وقالوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين